Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System. And we have another tutorial. I do want to point out that I am in the process of moving. So for this one and probably the next video, you're going to see some weird stuff going on in the back. So please just ignore the messiness of my jewelry displays that are being packed up. And then after that, there will be another setting. No idea what it's going to look like. I'm just praying all of my furniture fits into my new place. Okay, anyway, what we're going to do is make some earrings. I am planning on 2, possibly 3 pairs of earrings today. And I wanted to do something simple, super simple, and really, I believe, elegant. So we're going to do some dangle earrings that you can kind of make to your own specifications. You can make them as long or as short as you like, depending on how many little links and things you put in. So let's go ahead and get started. We're gonna be using our usual tools, our cutters, square pliers, and they're square because they're just flat on the inside, and they might be a little rounded around the edges, but you'll know that they're square or chain nose pliers because they'll have the flat surface on the inside of the teeth. I don't know why I call them teeth, but anyway. And then we have our round pliers that are round all the way around. I'm giving a better explanation because I've had people say, you just flash that up there so fast. So that's what we're using for tools. We're also going to be making our own ear wires. And one thing I usually just say, make sure to round off the ends so that you're not putting sharp edges in your ears. You're going to do that with a plain old ordinary. You can use a nail file, you can use an emery board. You don't need a special tool for that. They do make a special rounding tool for that, but I've found that sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. They take just as long as it takes me to use an emery board, and I've got that on hand all the time. So that's not a problem. And I don't need a special tool. And then also to make my ear wires, I'm going to use a pencil to do the rounding part. Just use a pencil. You can use any cylindrical item. It depends on how big you want it to be. You can use the back of your round nose pliers, depending on how narrow you want that inside, that part that goes through your ear to be. You can use a Sharpie. It's entirely up to you. I'm using a pencil today. What else do we need? We are going to be using several wires. We're going to be using 20 gauge round and 20 gauge square to make the pieces that we're going to make. That's it, 20 gauge. That's all we need. We'll also be using, I can show you the rest when we get down there because each one of them where I'm using natural beads. I decided to go with paper and seeds. Paper beads that I got from, I think it's Rwanda this time. Paper beads and from Africa, and some tagua nut seeds from Ecuador. We're going international. We're going multicultural. Yay, 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 yay. Okay, so let's get down here to the other camera because I have kind of been promising that I'm going to try to keep these under an hour, or at least no more than an hour. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. Let's see if we can get 3 whole pairs of earrings out of this in that amount of time. If we can't, we'll do 2, whatever. We're going to start with what I'm calling the stacked ear wire earring because it's all in one. The ear wire is connected to a stack of beads. Here are my tagua nuts, my little tagua nut button beads, and a wrapped paper bead from Rwanda. And then we're going to finish it off with an infinity wrap at the bottom. One of my favorite wraps. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with that. It's super simple. What I need is 5 inches of what? No, that's the wrong one. 5. I pre-cut a lot of things because things are packed up. So I'm sorry, I'm cheating a little bit with the cutting, but I'm not showing it on camera. But anyway, what you're going to need, I'm just straightening my wire out. What you're going to need for this is, it depends on how many beads you have and how much space they take up. So for your infinity wrap, give yourself a good inch. So that's 1 inch. Measure out your beads. I hope you didn't hear that. You getting an alert from it for an email. Measure your beads and see how much space they take up. In this case, mine take up 1 inch. So I need another inch of wire for that. That's 2 inches. And then I need a good 2 inches for my ear wire. I'm giving myself 2.5 just to be safe. So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4.5. Give yourself 5 if you want to, but at least 4.5 inches is what I'm using for my ear wire because I'm making it a nice long one. So let's measure out 4.5 inches of 20 gauge wire. I don't know why I didn't have this pre-cut, but that's okay. You'll get to see me measure something. Isn't that always so exciting? Okay, so I've got my wire. And I'm going to start with my infinity because that needs to be done first, because you can always cut off any extra from the other end. But down here, you can't really do that. So let's start with our infinity wrap. The first thing I'm going to do is take my pliers and I'm going to make a tiny little loop on the end, meaning that I'm going to put my wire right there at the tip of my pliers, like so. I don't want anything sticking out the back, and I can kind of see and feel that there's a little bit of wire sticking out. So I'm going to pull it back till it's right in between my pliers. And you don't want to grip it too tight because it'll pop, the wire will pop out from between the little teeth in protest. So just give yourself a little time and a little patience. A lot of patience. Here's a little trick. Go ahead and have this sticking out a little bit. Give it a little bit of a bend so you have something to hold on to, and then go down to where you want it to go. Back here where there's nothing sticking out. Now I can work with it. And if I need to, I'll show you another little trick. Let's go ahead and let's rotate until I have a little loop. There we go. Now, my little loop is fine, but I might want it a little more round. There's really nothing wrong with this loop, but I want to show you a little trick. If you want it a little more round and a little less line there, just a straight line, go in and clip it right here at the round part of your wire. And I'm going to bring this down just a tad more so that you can see a little bit better. See how that's a little straight there? More like an oval. So say I want it a little more round, just for the heck of it. I'm going to cut off right there at the roundest part of my loop. Just snip it off. A little bit of that little piece. So now it's nice and round and it's heading in the direction I want it to go. And let's take my pliers again, go back in and finish my loop. See? Now, really round. Then I'm going to go to the other side, just beyond my present loop. Again, I'm going to hold it right there at the tip. And I'm going to make another loop going away from the loop that I have right here. So here's my loop going this way. I'm going to wrap around the other way and make another loop. And there's my little infinity. And I'm going to take my flat pliers and just push it down so that it's nice and flat. And there we go. Here's my little infinity bottom. So then I'm going to introduce my beads. Now what I've decided on is 3 Tagua beads and 1 paper bead. Now I had it the other way around. Get back on there. I had it the other way around like this. And that was pretty, but this is gorgeous. So that's the way we're going to put them on. Starting with my paper bead. And then I'm going to add my other beads in the order that I made the other one. 1 rosy colored one, 1 light cocoa brown one, and 1 ivory. Ooh, aren't they pretty? Okay, so now I can see that I have way more wire than I need for my loop. So all I really needed was, let's see here. This probably takes 3/4 of an inch. I gave myself an inch. This definitely takes an inch. And this little guy right here is only going to take me maybe, yeah, should take 2 inches. Why do I have so much wire? Did I cut 5 instead of 4? I have 3 inches left. No, that's 4.5. Really only needed about 3.5. It's about 1.5, maybe 1 3/4, 1.5, 2.5, 3. Yeah, I needed about 3.5. That's okay. So there we go with, I'm just talking as I work. So there we go with my little stack. Now I want these to match as closely as possible. And I wanted this to be a nice long hook, which it is. So I went way up here, gave myself a lot of space before I started my curve. Let's see if I can match that up. Matching is the most interesting part of getting your wires to look the same. So I'm going to go up here, just slide that on. Match that. There we go. That looks like about the place that it needs to go. I'm going to bend this back like I did this one. So give it a little bend and make sure that I'm bending it. The infinity wrap is flat and my bend should be going up and down because I want that wrap to show, right? I want that to be the thing that people see. Okay, so let's bend that back. There we go. And that's where my wrap is going to start. Get a little fiddly trying to get it to be as perfect as possible, but it's worth it. There we go. Right about there. Yes. And now it's on my pencil. All I need to do is bring the wire over the top of my pencil. Stop it. The top of my pencil, like so. And let me check. Make sure it looks good. Yes, it does. Bring that over. Bring it down until it won't go any further. I don't want to bend my wire a bit. And then I'm going to adjust it because this I opened out a little bit. So I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. Did I use a Sharpie for this? I don't think I did. No, I didn't use a Sharpie. I may have used a different pencil when I made it. Darn it, Virginia. Why? I used you. That's still too big. I had another pencil. I'm telling you, everything's packed away. What can I do? I'm going to put it over this guy instead. So I think this is closer to the size of the other one. And I am right. Okay. So anyway, what you do is you wrap your wire over your cylindrical item and bring it down the side until it won't go any further than your beads. And that's it. And now I shape my wire. And the way I do that is just use my fingers and just give it a little curve. Just this a little bit. That doesn't need to be back quite so far. Curve my wire, clip off what I don't need. I'm going to snip off that end, and look, I've got to get 1 1/8 to 1/4 wire left. That's okay. Maybe I can use it for something. There we go. Let's do a little shaping. Got a little more round back here. And just shape it until it looks the way I want. A bit, boop. And then the last thing that I do, yes. So the second to the last thing that I do is take my pliers. I'm going to make sure that this is nicely flush cut. And then I'll take my pliers, either my round or my square pliers, and I'm just going to give this a little bend right here on the end. I can grab it. Take this little end here and bend it up a little bit. Kind of gives it a little ledge. And there we have it, ladies and gents. There is my pair of stacked Tagua paper earrings. Now, how do you ask? How, you might ask, do I keep these from coming off? That's a good question. Put one of those little rubber stoppers on the back to keep your earring, your beads from coming off. You can also make this bend a little deeper. I can bend it back a little bit more, a little sharper. That. Then it's a little harder for it to get over the top. But it's up to you the way you want to do that. Yeah, I can make that a little sharper, and then it's a little harder to get over there. Okay, we put this one. Very good. So there's our first pair of earrings. Put this to the side. Move on to number 2. This one is going to be Tagua nuts and square wire. Now, I had somebody say, can I do, I have a hard time finding square wire in where I am, in the country that I am. Is there any way that I can do it with regular wire? You absolutely can. I'm using square wire just for some additional texture. That's it. It doesn't have to be square at all. Sorry, just gotta, yes, I know. Okay, my movers are telling me what time they'll be here tomorrow. Okay, so I'm using square wire and 20 gauge wire to make my ear wires, and also 20 gauge wire to make what I'm calling a crimped eye pin or head pin. Because if if you don't need to buy head pins, why bother? So I'm putting a little tiny crimp on the bottom of this that you can barely see in order to make that my head pin instead of using a prefab one. Might even be able to use that little extra piece of wire. We shall see. First, let's start with the twisting of the square wire, which is what we're going to do. That's why I said you can use round wire. I'm just doing it because I wanted something with a little bit more texture. So I'm using the square wire so that I can twist it and it'll come out like this. But round wire is perfectly fine as well if you can't get square wire. So I'm starting out with 5 inches. It's a little more than 5. 5 inches is what you're going to need. What I'm going to need, and it depends on how long you want your ear wire to be, your dangle to be. I'm using 5 inches because I need to give myself enough to make loops on each end of the wire, and I need to make my little waves. So I'm giving myself probably more than I need. I doubt that you really need more than 4. I don't know why I cut so much wire, but you probably don't even need but 3. Yeah, I think that's actually what you need. I gave myself a good inch on each side, and then 2 inches for the wiggles, but I didn't want to have to worry about losing or having to stop the video and go get more wire because I shortchanged myself. So I'm going to tell you, for this length that I'm doing, which is ending up with a wire that's about 1.5 inches long, I would say use 3 inches of wire. Those of you who get kits, you're going to have enough wire so that you can maneuver the size and make it shorter if you don't like them that long. Make it a little longer if you want to. And that's where we'll go. All right, so for starters, let's twist this wire. So what I'm going to do is use 2 pairs of pliers. You can either loop one end, which is why you need a little bit extra. You can either loop one end and hold it with your round nose pliers for some leverage, or you can use 2 pairs of pliers, which I think I'm going to do here, and hold it with one and twist it with the other. So I'm going to hold it with this pair, and I'm going to twist it with the other pair. And this, you're doing this by hand, so it's a process. So be prepared. And you can twist with both, by the way. Hold it with both and twist both of them. Might be a little faster. That's going to take a minute or 5. Be patient. Hear how it's clicking? That means it's rolling around in my grip. Let's see if I can hold it a little tighter. Then the other thing you can do, those of you who have one, is use a power drill. If you use a power drill, it takes 10 seconds, but we're doing it the old-fashioned way. Just using my hands and the tool. Stop clicking, right? Clicking. It's just rolling around in my pliers, eating the whole purpose of me trying to twist. Stop it. And it doesn't need a lot of twisting, just enough so that the light bounces off of it when you look. Is it rolling? It is rolling. Let's try the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and make a loop on the end. So I have something to grip it with. And I'm just going to twist. Now it's not rolling around. It's captured. And let's just twist it a few times. And you can start to see the twists in the wire and the light is catching it. Yeah. So between that and the little waves we're going to make, this is going to be very pretty. So there we go. Now you can see the little twists in there. Great. So now let's make our first loop. You know what? That will suffice for my loop. My first loop anyway. So my first loop right here, it's kind of cheating. I didn't get to show you how to do it. Yeah, let's not do that. I'm going to clip that off. So what I'm going to do is make a small loop. It doesn't have to be large. I want it to be about the size that I use for my little waves. So I'm going to slide back about a quarter of the way back on my pliers like that. Make sure the wire's not sticking out. So my wire is about a quarter of the way down my pliers. Now, all pliers aren't created equal. It really depends on how big you want your loop to be. And the barrels of different types of pliers are all different. So just kind of eyeball it and see how approximately large you can determine your loop will be, and it will take practice with your pliers to kind of be able to see where on the barrel of your pliers you want to go to make your loop. So my wire is in there. It's not sticking out the back. I'm just going to rotate, open, rotate back, clasp back down, rotate again, open, and I'm going to keep doing that until the tip of my wire hits the back of the long strand of wire, and that will be my loop. Okay, so there's my loop. So the next thing I'm going to do is make my little waves. So I've got my loop. Let's see, my wave is going forward. I think I went ahead and did my waves before I did my loops, but that's okay. So there's my loop. Yes. So I'm going to slide my pliers back where they were the first time. And I'm going to make a little bend in my wire, just like that. And I'm going to go down underneath, back to the same place in my wire, and I'm going to bend it the other way. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the next level. You can see where I'm going with this. And just keep making these until you have the number of little waves that you want. Oops. And this is not an exact science. This is very organic. Nice. And check in a minute. I think I have, see how many waves I have on my other one. If they match. Okay, let's see how many I have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 12, 12. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, and 12. All right. There we go. Take the flyers and flatten everything out nicely. Pretty good. Okay. And I need to make my other loop on the other end. And I made my loops opposite because I thought that was prettier. So this loop is come on, this loop is going this way, and this loop will go that way. So this loop is going this way, this loop will go the other way. So I'm going to go ahead and slide my pliers just inside the last wave that I made, down about 1/4 of the way down my pliers, just like I did the other loop. I'm going to bring this tail of wire over the top of my pliers, wrap it around like so, until I can't go any further because I don't want to go over both barrels. Then I'm going to take my pliers out, rotate back and flip to the other barrel, and bring that tail around under the pliers until I have a loop. Now I can take my clippers and just clip that off right inside the loop, just at the tip. And there we go. Excellent. So let's go ahead. That camera's sliding off its little stand. So let's go ahead and make our little pin for our Agwinix. Okay. So this just requires a little piece of 20 gauge wire. Now I'm going to use this little tiny piece of wire that I had left over from my other earring. It's just over an inch, about 1 1/8 inches, and that's going to work. It depends on how many of these you want to stack, how many beads you want to stack. It's entirely up to you. There is no exact science on this. I decided just to use 2 because I didn't want it to be excessively long. Plus, these things are expensive, and I used so many of them up. I got them from Ecuador, and some of you have heard the story of me trying to get these through customs from Ecuador during the COVID. It was just at the cusp of it. It has just started. Nobody knew what was happening. They weren't letting anything by customs. It was a nightmare. Anyway, so, and my classes were starting to shut down anyway. So I was contacting the authorities there going, just cancel it. And they were going, please don't cancel it. So I went ahead and finally got them weeks later, after everything was closed down. But I'm glad I got them. They're cute. They look like little Skittles. They just make little pretty earrings and bracelets and things. Anyway, I got off topic. I have, for my little purposes here, what you want to do is measure your beads, see how much space they take up. In this case, they take up about 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to say 1/2 because it's easier to calculate. And then I need approximately 1/2 inch on each side to make my loop and my little, my tiny little scrunchy loop, which I'm calling a crimp, at the bottom. So I need about 1 inch, 3/8. So that's 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch and 1/2 inch. That's actually 1 inch and 3/8, but I'm not going to need that because I can see when I put these on, these are this little 3/8 of an inch. It's not even that. Yeah, it's about 3/8. And then I need a 1/2 inch on each side, really 1/4 of an inch for my crimp. So add that 1/4 to 3/8 or 1/2, and that's 3/4. And then I need a 1/2 inch over here. That's 1 1/4. I have about a little less than 1 1/4, and that's going to do it. So I'm going to use this little piece of wire that was left over, if I can find my pliers. First thing I need to do is make my little crimp on the bottom. So I'm going to take my pliers and I'm just going to grab the tip of my wire. Again, that's always a challenge, but this time I can let a little bit of it stick out the back because it doesn't have to be a round loop. So what I'm going to do is bend my wire around my pliers and just go about 2/3 of the way. I don't want a loop. I just want a little hook. And then I'm going to take my square pliers and I'm going to crimp that end because it just needs to be tiny. Yes. In fact, they could probably be smaller than this, but that's fine. Yeah, I'm going to take a tiny little bit of it off because it really doesn't need to be that big. I'm just going to cut the, I threw my wire away. I'm going to cut the end of it off and squeeze that little tiny little loop, 3/4 loop, into a little nub, just like that. So that's what I have. Wow, that looks blurry. You see that? It's blurry to me, probably light. Sorry, when there's too much light filtering through, this does not like it. There we go. There's my little nub. Then I'm going to put my beads on. Let me see how I have them here. I wanted something a little classic. So there we go. And all I needed was a 1/2 inch or so. And I have a little more than a 1/2 inch to make my loop. I'm going to bend that back. Snip that off because I can see that that's more than I need. Down to my little 1/2 inch. Right at that little tip. Grab my pliers, my round nose pliers. I'm going to slide my wire down this time. Again, just a little more than 1/3 of the way down. And I'm going to make a loop. Wire about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Nothing sticking out the back here. I'm going to rotate my pliers. Maybe. I'm going to rotate my pliers. And then open, rotate back, clamp back down, and rotate and keep rotating until I have a loop. And there we go. Now all I need to do is connect it to my little pin. Now, you want them to go opposite directions because they're supposed to be a mirror image. One's going in one ear, one's going in the other ear. So this one that I have already made has the loop going to my left. So the other one needs the loop going to the right, and then on the bottom it's just the opposite. My loop on the one that I've already made is going to the right, so the one I just made needs to be going to the left. So let's go ahead and attach my beads. So I'm going to open up this bottom loop, and you just open it up to the side. Just grab the end and twist. Slide it on my loop or my over my beads, and then just twist it back to closed position. And make sure that's nicely closed. You want the tip of your wire to meet the long squiggle length of wire. And there we have it. And then we just need to make another ear wire. Do that real quick. So in this case, because it's not attached to anything, what I'm going to do is make a loop on the bottom, slide my wire about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. It doesn't need to be a huge loop. Make sure nothing's sticking out the back like we normally do a loop, and rotate until I have the tip of my wire touching the rest of my wire. There we go. I'm going to grab my cylindrical item, whichever one you want to use, pencil, pen, Sharpie, your choice. I'm going to place it on the back of my loop. The back is the part that doesn't have the loop sticking out. So it's on the long part of wire on the back of my loop. Get back behind my loop. Now, did I go with this one just above the loop? Okay, now for this one, I'm going just above the loop. I'm not making it as long as I did the other one. And I'm going to bring my wire over the pencil and around until the long piece of wire touches the loop. I can slide that out and shape my ear wire. And again, I just do it with my fingers. Let's give it a little curve until I like the way it looks. Nice and graceful. Clip off the end that I don't need. Let's match it up with this one. Bring this down a little bit because the other one looks like it's a little shorter. I'm going to curve. Good. Rip off what I don't need. And put my little bend in. There we go. And then just shape it. Put that off. I don't need quite that much of a bend. And if your little tip is too small to hold, I like to use the little my little spools of wire and just put the little tips down in the well where they drop off. And if there's a tag on the bottom, they'll just stick down in there. Otherwise, they will just fall out the other end and then you can discard them. So there's my ear wire. Now, what I didn't show you in this one and should have, yeah, this one, is how to round it out. So I'm going to take my little emery board and I'm just going to round it. Just round the edges, just like you do your fingernails. You just want to make sure that it's not sharp. That it's nice and rounded and it's not got any sharp edges. You'll be able to tell kind of with your fingers. You can just poke yourself, just like you would if you had purchased your wires and see how that feels. It's nice and round and easy to wear. There we go. And now all I need to do is open up my little loop. This loop is a little smaller, so I think I'm going to cut that down a tad. It's a little bigger than I want. And in order to do that, I just go to the inside of the loop, snip a little bit of it off, and reclose. There we go. Now I have a smaller loop. Now I just open it up again. I'm just twisting it to the side. Make sure I slide it on the opposite direction. So this one is that way, this way. So this should go that way. And slide that on my little loop. There we go. Yes. And close my loop. And there's my earring. Very nice. All right, that's 2 pairs of earrings. Let's go ahead and do a third one because I really love these. These are lovely. So what we're going to do is take these little hollow tubes, a piece of 20 gauge wire, and we're just going to thread that through the tubes, and then we're going to texturize the tubes. So for our wire, we're going to need approximately, it depends on how long you want your earrings to be. I did mine 2 different lengths so that it would, so they wouldn't bang into each other. So what I did was take my little, take my little tube. This one I kept the same size. And this one I cut down a little bit. Yeah, so this one's the size it came. And this one I cut. So it would be just a tiny bit smaller. So I'm going to cut that off maybe 1/4 of an inch, just so that it dangles a little different, little higher than the other one. Give it a little graduated look. So I'm going to snip that off, that little end, with my cutters. Interesting. Okay, and what it's going to do is close up the end. So you'll need to take your pliers and just squeeze them until it opens up again. It's just very soft, so you don't have to force it or anything. Just use your pliers and reopen that little hole there. Get rid of my excess. So now you want to string on your 20 gauge wire. I need enough to go through my tube and make a loop and wrap on the end. So give yourself a good inch to an inch and an eighth for your loop and your wrap on each end. So I'm going to say 1, 2 1/4. Give yourself 2 1/2 for that, and then enough to go through your tubes. So each one of these tubes is approximately, they're curved, so you're going to have to add a little bit to it. So about 1 1/2 inches, I would give myself 2 inches. So we got 1, 2 1/4, 3, 4 1/4. Give yourself 4 1/2, and you should have plenty of wire. Those of you who get kits, of course, will have one long piece of wire, and you can just string the one and then cut it off instead of cutting them into 2 pieces. Or you can cut them into 2 pieces. Entirely up to you. So give myself, see, 1, 2 1/4, 4 1/4, 4 1/2 inches, and then 4 1/2 inches for the other one. And so that's 9. I'm just going to go ahead and give myself 10 inches just to be safe. And then if I have to cut something off, I'll have enough to use for something else. All right. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is feed my wire through my tube. And it's going to be a bit of a challenge because this is curved. But what you can do is kind of curve your wire as you go and then just slide it through. So I'm going to give myself a good 1 1/4 inches for my loop and my wrap. And then I'm going to bend back the wire just right here at the tip of my tube. Now, I want my tube to show. So what I want is for my loops to go front to back along with the curve. So what I want to do is bend my wire back. So here's my curve, and there's my wire. It's like a continuous curve. And then I'm going to take my pliers, my round nose pliers. I'm going to slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, like so. And I'm going to bring that tail of wire over my pliers and down the side of my tube. Then I'm going to open my pliers up without shifting my wire, rotate back, clamp back down, and bring the tail completely under my pliers. So I have a loop. I'm going to roll that a little bit so that my loop is right on top of my tube. Then I'm going to grab my flat pliers, hold on to the face, what I call the face of my loop. I'm going to wrap that wire around the tube a couple of times. I'm just doing 2. I just want it to be nice and secure. And I think that makes it look kind of pretty, gives it a little wrap. And then what I'm going to do, once I've wrapped it those 2 times around, I'm going to lift my wire up and snip right here in between, the center of the loop. And just clip that off. Then I'm going to push that wire back down. I find that if I go ahead and curve it around, it's easier to push the wire, the ends of the wire down against my tube instead of trying to push a straight end of wire down. It's nicely curved in the direction that I want it to go. Much easier. Yes. Now I'm going to go to the other end and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bend my wire back, grab my pliers, slide the wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers, bring my wire over the top of my pliers and down the side where my tube is, open my pliers up, rotate back, bring that wire all the way around until I have a loop. Grab my square pliers, excuse me, and wrap the tail of that wire around my tube 2 times. And keep those wraps nice and close. If I see them drifting apart, I can just squeeze them close with my pliers. Okay, bring that around. I have my 2 wraps. Open that back up a little bit. Clip off that end. And push it down. That little end down against my tube. Nice. Now we're going to crimp the tube so that it has a little texture. Because right now I just have a straight tube, which is fine, but not that interesting. So let's just remedy that, shall we? So what we're going to do is take our pliers. You can use the round ones, you can use the flat ones. It's entirely up to you. Just take the tip of your pliers and go down about 1/8 of an inch from the top. Give it a little squeeze, like so. And then give it a 1/4 turn. And then go down another 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch, 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch, and give it another squeeze. Turn it a 1/4 turn. Go down, squeeze, and just keep doing that until you get to the bottom. And I think I can do one more. There we go. Nice. Let's do the other one. Now I can see I have way more wire than I need. Yay. I can use that for something else. Slide my wire in. This is why you don't need to straighten this wire out for this project. Just keep it curved because it'll slide in your curved tube even easier. Okay, so I've got my little 1.25 inches or so for my loop. I'm going to bend it back. Again, here's the curve of my loop. I'm going to bend it back. The wire, that is. Slide my wire down about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Bring the tail over the top and down the side. Open my pliers up, rotate back and clasp back down and bring that tail under the pliers until you have a loop. I hope that was on camera. My goodness, glad I did it twice. And I'm going to grab the face of my loop with my pliers and wrap. Just need 2 wraps for this. That's a plenty. A little short. I shortchanged myself a little bit on this one. We still have plenty. Neaten up that little wrap there. There we go. If it gets too short to use your fingers, just use your pliers to bring the rest of that end around. Here we go. And again, I'm going to move it away from my my little tube, clip off that end that I don't need, right there in the middle of my loop. Oh, yeah. And then take my flat square pliers and push that end down as close as I can get it to the tube. And when I say push, I mean push. You don't want to squeeze your tube up here. You're just pushing down your wire. There we go. And let's do the other side. Move it back. I'm going to clip off some of this because I don't need it. Let's make my loop first. I make my loop. Slide down about 1/3 of the way. Wrap that wire over the top. Rotate back. Clamp back down and bring my wire under my pliers. I'll go ahead and wrap it, and then I'll cut it. And then wrap that around 2 times. That's a 1, and that's 2. And open it up a little bit. Grab my cutters. Nip it off in the middle of my loop. And then push that little end down close to my tube. Nice, neat, and tidy. Good. And let's start our crimping. A little bit, 1/8 of an inch or so from the top. Crimp that down, turn to the side, crimp, turn to the other side, down about 1/8 of an inch, crimp. Keep doing that all the way down. And make sure you're turning it side to side because that's what gives it texture. And it really hits the light in a pretty way. One more. There we go. Yay. Aren't those pretty? So now let's put some beads on. So what I did on this one was on the short one, which is this one right here. Shorter one, I guess I should say. I put a blue striped bead. On the longer one, I put kind of a powder blue, robin's egg blue, maybe, bead. So let's go ahead and put my beads on. And again, I just did the same thing that I did on this one, a little crimp on the bottom and a loop on the top. Easy peasy. So let's grab my 20 gauge wire. And I just need enough. I think I used 1.25 inches for the other one, and it was plenty. So I'm going to do that again. But what you want to do is make sure you measure your bead first. See how much bead I have. In this case, I have about 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to add another 1.5 inches. So we'll say 1/2 inch. So we'll say 2 inches for the short one and 2.5 for the long one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that off. That's for both pieces. I'm going to go ahead and make my little tiny crimp. And last time I showed you with the round pliers. You can also do this with the square pliers, but you want to make it very, very small. So if you have a big barrel on the end, you might want to stick with the tip of your long ones. I'm just going to grab it, give myself a 1/4 turn and then a 3/4 turn. See how much bigger that is than the round one? I don't want to make it too big because I'm going to have to squish it down. So I'm about halfway around, and I'm going to take my pliers, and I'm just going to squeeze the short end against the long end like that, nice and tight and tiny. And there's my little print. Now I'm going to put my little bead on. See that? Nice and neat. Now the paper beads might have larger holes. So what I suggest that you do is fold your little crimp over to the side so that it has a little ledge. Then you don't have to worry about it possibly sliding into the little hole. So there we go. Nicely secured. And then I just need to make my loop. So I'm going to bend my wire back, grab my round nose pliers, and I'm just going to make a simple loop so that I can attach it to my tube loops. So I'm going to cut it off. I only need a ½ inch. See how much wire I had left? Way too much. Put that down, grab my pliers. Again, I'm going to go about 1/3 of the way. Actually, I'm going to go about 1/4 of the way down my pliers. I don't need too big a loop. Make sure nothing's sticking out from the back of the pliers. And I'm going to, rotate until I have a loop. There we go. Now, see how I have that little neck there? I don't want that little neck. So in order to get rid of that, I'm going to make my loop smaller. So I'm not smaller. I'm going to use some space up in my loop to get rid of that little neck. So that little neck, just cut off a tiny little piece on the end there, down right there at the bottom where it's open. Snip that off. Get rid of the excess. Get out there. And then reclose my loop. And that'll take up some of that space that's down there. There we go. Now I don't have that little expansive wire showing at the bottom. There, nice. Now I'm going to grab my pliers. Again, we want to make sure that these are mirror image. Actually, I don't need to worry about that until I put my ear wire on. Okay, so let's open up my little loop, attach it to my tube loop, and close it back up. Good. Then let's do the same thing on the other side. Make my little crimp. Oh, I used square pliers last time. That's okay. Same difference. Just squeeze that. Squeeze the short end against the long end. There we go. A little crimp. Introduce my little bead. Put that on. See how much bigger the hole in this one is. So the little trick I have is going to be good because, oh no, it's good. But still, I'm going to go ahead and turn it. I don't want to risk losing one of my beads. So I'm going to turn my little crimp on the side just like so. So I have a little flat head and just push it up against my little bead like that. And if you're really worried that this won't fit the little hole, just make a longer curve on the bottom like that and just push it down on the side. And the rest of what you're going to do over here is going to keep it from going anywhere, so you don't really have to worry about it coming off. So there we have it. I'm going to make my little loop, bend that back. And I said you don't have to worry about it because it's not going to be moving around too much. So it should be perfectly fine and secure. Grab my pliers. Actually, there's two ways you can do this. You can take your pliers and then make your loop, or you can go ahead and cut it off at the 1/2 inch, which is what I prefer to do. And then make my loop. I find that I get a tighter fit that way. That's just me. Here we go. Ta-da. Let's open it up. It's so tight I can't even see it. There we go. Open it up and attach it. Now I want these going opposite directions like this. So I'm going to turn this way when I put it on my ear wire. And close that up. Nice. Now, this long piece of wire I had left, guess what I'm going to use that for? Ear wire. Yay. Grab my pliers. Let me make this a little more neat and tidy. Slide my wire about 1/3 of the way down my pliers. Make my little loop. Get the other one, see if it's about the same size. A little bigger, so let's slide those pliers back 1/4 of the way instead of 1/3. But let me just clip that off. Use that loop up a little smaller. Better. Okay, and let's grab my pencil. Yes. Go down about 1/4 of an inch away from my loop, and wrap my wire around my pencil or whatever item you're using until the wire touches the loop. Slide that out. And makes the curve in my wire that I love so much. Match it up with the other one. Okay, let's cut that off. And I still have a good 1.5 inches of wire left. My goodness. A nice little curve in there. And then do the little tip right there on the very tip of my wire with the tip of my pliers. Just give it a little wedge, like so. And now we're going to attach. Again, these need to be turned opposite, facing each other. And it needs to be a mirror image of this one. So this one has my striped one going this way, and this one should have the striped one going that way with the ear wire turned in the opposite direction like that. So let's go ahead and put those on. So I'm going to open up my ear wire. Again, I just open it up to the side like so. And I'm going to slide on my striped one and then slide on my nice little, oh, I'm going to slide on my blue one and then slide on my striped one. Check, make sure everything is the way I want it. Blue inside, stripe outside. And let's close up our little loop. That was what I've got. Come on. You did put them on backwards. Yes, I did. They could go that way, but that's not the way I want them to go. So let's open that up again. Okay. The blue. This way. And this way. All right, so that's what I want. So I want the blues to be kind of facing each other, back to back, side by side. My ear wires are facing the opposite direction. Slide that on. Okay, and slide on the other one. There we go. And let's close up my ear wire. And there we have my earrings. There they are. Nice, very nice. So there we have it. 3 lovely pairs of earrings. One of these is going on my ears today. Don't know which one, but one of them is. There they are, ladies and gentlemen. There are our earrings. I love them. I might put those on. I got to change my shirt. That's okay. there are the earrings, ladies and gents. I think I went over my hour. I am so sorry. I just can't keep to a schedule. So here we go. I'm always trying to do more. I should have stopped at 2, but I didn't. And this is the result of our earring extravaganza. That's what I ought to call it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really enjoyed making them. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you will get in contact with us and let us know how or if you like them. If you can contact me at, let's go up here, maybe. If you'll contact me at jewelrygen20@gmail.com, that's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com, or at the library Facebook page at facebook.com/DeKalb Library. That's facebook.com/DEKALBLIBRARY, and let us know what you think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What did you like? What didn't you like? We all want to hear it all. So I hope to hear from you. And please remember always that these videos are free to you. They come to you from the DeKalb County Library Foundation, who wants you to be creative all year long. So until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. And until I see you again, or until you see me again, so long. Bye-bye.